Every single type of car you might be interested in, the 90s probably did it first and arguably did it best.
It was a golden era.
There's nothing else like them. It's hard to put it into words.
The sound, the feel, you feel like you're part of the car.
Whether it was the road cars that were cool, the racing cars, touring cars, Formula One was cool in those days, rallying was cool.
Back in the 90s, it was more, how outrageous can we make it? What's the most outrageous body kit we can do? How can we push power from the engines?
People who want a 90s car don't feel like you've missed out on the best car ever, or, you know, the golden era. No, the golden era is now.
I'm Tim Harvey.
And I'm Mike Fidovich, and this is Cars That Made the 90s.
I regard the 90s as my generation's sort of, or the equivalent of my parents' generation's 60s, because it was our fabulous time. You know, people now are obviously looking back at the 90s because they were growing up and it was when they first got really massively interested in cars and motoring. For everything that was going on, you know, it was a golden era of motoring, there's no doubt. That's why we're talking about it. I mean, you know, no doubt. There was a lot going on, you know, and the motoring that we did see, you know, because you didn't have the YouTube access that you have now, but, you know, the motoring you did see was rallying, Formula One and touring cars. And they were all perfect times to be watching motorsport, weren't they? All three genres, if you like, were absolutely fantastic. F1 was V10s and V12s, you know, the best sounding Formula One cars in lightweight analog racing cars, you know, and then rallying, you had the Subarus, Colin McRae and everything else that was really big following, massive, you know, the Rally GB was the biggest spectator event in the country every year. Touring cars, 9 manufacturers all racing against each other. I mean, what a great period for motorsport.
You had actual design and innovation happening inside each cabin. Every single car looked different, every car felt different, it gave you a different energy, had a different aura, different vibe about it.
I mean, we all talk about, you know, you drive down the road and you could identify every car on the road. You can't do that now. Honestly, the cars pass me and I haven't got a clue what the manufacturer is, let alone what type of car it is.
Also, just because of regulations at the time, you had far less constraints around exhaust systems, the way a car was taking its fuel, burning it and outputting it into the world, which allows you to ultimately get more noise. There's no other way of putting it. Cars simply sounded better. But another thing which in my opinion peaked in the 90s, probably the manual gearbox. The joy of throwing a stick around and having 3 pedals to mash in a combo that, you know, allows you to have the perfect driving line, the perfect exit out of a corner is super satisfying.
You want a car that actually just going from A to B is a pleasure in itself. I mean, it's something, we've got a 911 behind us. You will never drive a dull mile in that car. Whether it's your first mile or the 100,000th mile, you will still enjoy driving it. And you can't say that about a lot of cars. A lot of cars, after you've had it 6 weeks, 6 months, just becomes a car, doesn't it? And that's it.
You hear that? Very quiet, right? That's a brand new 911 being started on cold. And it barely picked up. You wouldn't get that with a 996. If I start that thing, the bloody dust would come falling from the ceiling.
We had some really cool road cars. I really enjoyed that period of completely analog, you know, real seat of the pants connection from your bum to the chassis, from your hands through to the steering wheel and tyres. You know, they'd had no electric power steering or anything like that. It was just, they were just really good analog cars.
It's that perfect balance of engineering while having an analog feel to it, which somebody who's a car enthusiast really values and wants from whatever their choice of car is. Chances are what you're looking for is probably from the 90s.
People learnt to drive properly in those cars because they moved around a bit, the tyres weren't too grippy, they weren't too powerful, so you could actually explore the limits of the car on the roads then. You could actually drive the cars to not not to their limit, but you could drive them closer to their limit to get an enjoyment factor. Nowadays, the cars are so capable, you don't ever get anywhere near the limit to get that feedback.
This car was a scrap car. It came into my work and I purchased it. It's one of my dream cars. As soon as it came in, I bought it straight away. Watching the old Fast and Furious, everyone focused on the Skylines and the Supras. They must have forgot about the sea of Honda Civics in the background.
I think every single person watching this film has probably raced a Civic around a video game at some point in their youth. At the end of the day, a Civic was a cheap entry-level hatchback that anybody could get. But here you can jump on a video game, you can drive it, you can rag it around a track, and it gives it a sporty edge that you otherwise wouldn't expect to find in a car. Suddenly, this pedestrian Civic you see on the street is a little bit more sexy.
I've always been hooked on hatchbacks, still have a hatchback somewhere in the family all the time. My own sort of personal favourites were Golf GTIs and 205 Peugeots and 306s and 106s actually. They were just really, I've always had a bit of a penchant for hatchbacks.
The Honda NSX, the holy grail of Honda.
Ah, God, Honda NSX, what a fantastic car. Who hasn't seen that footage of Ayrton Senna in a pair of sort of loafers driving an NSX, dancing on the pedals? I mean, that's just absolute, to me, that is just mesmeric. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Oh, I've had my Senna moments before. I wear a lot of loafers. It absolutely obliterated and embarrassed the baby Ferrari at the time, offering a real supercar exotic package from something that is traditionally very pedestrian, a Honda.
To have a 3-litre V6 VTEC just over your shoulder certainly puts a smile on my face.
You can hear it, you can feel it, there's a real buzz to it. It really engages you when you're in a car like the NSX.
I heard in the mid-80s that Honda were in the throes of designing a real serious sports car, like a Ferrari Beta, that pricked most people's ears up, I think.
Culturally, the NSX was fantastic. It was a poster car. It allowed kids to dream of maybe owning something other than, you know, maybe if they were told growing up, oh, you know, you need a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. No, there's a kid out there who's found his own individuality in this idea of the NSX being the car for him or her, and that's brilliant. It further pushes the point that variety was really key and king back in the 90s in a way that maybe it wasn't prior.
There were all these cultures going on. You know, you had the Japanese car culture, which was huge, absolutely huge. You had all the bolt-on modification stuff. There were pages full of tuners and adverts in Max Power, whether it was body kits or turbo gear. For me, it was the variety of cars that were so special.
It's an endless variety and endless possibilities of different cars to enjoy and use from the 90s. There's something out there for everybody, from a big luxury car to a two-seater sports car to an estate car and SUV.
My style of driving was never fast, it was more about something being comfortable, and I got in it and there was this light bulb moment come on and I thought I pressed all the switches and the buttons and everything was very basic, you know, even the radio was an extra. And I got in and I thought, this was great.
You jump into a car from the 90s, chances are you're not going to find two buttons that are the same. Chances are, you know, if you have multiple optional extras in the car, you can tell by the state of the dashboard, you'll have blanking plates. You don't have blanking plates anymore, everything's just on a screen. You miss that physical connection with a car that you could get from a 90s car.
It's a really immersive experience of your control input, steering, braking, throttle, balancing that car. We were lucky to have that real feel in our hands of what the car was actually doing.
This car has no ABS, no traction control, no, it doesn't even have airbags. It's got none of that. It's just you in the car. Taking it on a nice road, it feels amazing to drive, and they've got their own personalities.
For me, the first time when I sat in this car and I drove it home and it was mine, it was a joy. I think that's my connection with every car that I have, is that if I'm happy with the car, I almost don't care what happens to it. I will rebuild it from the ground up every time I sit in my cars, and whether it's a long drive or just a short drive, I feel happy, and that's what matters to me.
It's nostalgia. Everybody comes up to you. I had one of those. My dad had one of those. You know, my mum took me to school in that.
90s cars really had a trickle-down effect into pop culture. When the Focus came out in 1999, because it was such a well-selling product and it was so kind of all-consuming, it became a bit of a kind of cultural icon. The film Kevin and Perry Go Large, the intro sequence to that film, every single house on the intro, on the driveways, they all have Ford Focuses. These cars became featured in pop culture because they were so good and became so popular. It was impossible for media, kind of the press, to turn away from them. They're just so omnipresent that they simply appeared everywhere and featured a part of everybody's life.
Winning the championship in '92 sort of set me up for the rest of the '90s, if you like. So I managed to do Austin Rover, BMW, Renault, Volvo, Peugeot, bit of Alfa Romeo, bit back to Peugeot, you know. So I got a good collection of jackets and overalls. We were racing, as I said, in the mid-90s with 9 manufacturers. That was 18 fully contracted professional drivers. They were all able to race against each other. There was no sort of umbrella manufacturer groups. They were all individuals racing against each other. So it was important for them to try and, you know, for Vauxhall to try and beat Nissan or whatever else it might be. For BMW, it was always they were the premium brand and they felt they had to win. But it was good that they were prepared to race against everybody else. I've always had a soft spot for BMs.
What a lot of that original M-Power fan club really liked about M-Power cars was that all the power's at the top end, and it felt like you could just stay there and just keep burying your foot and it would just keep revving and it would just keep going. It's very involving, and again, that's what people like. This is why people go back to these cars, because it demands more of you and it gives you more when you produce the goods. It does feel like there's a bit more of a partnership between you and the car.
I didn't naturally gel with front-wheel drive cars the way I do with rear-wheel drive cars. So for me, BMWs have featured very heavily in my driving sort of career, road cars and racing. And of course, I won the championship in an E36 BMW. So for me, they are absolutely golden.
The E36 really represents a very particular time where BMW had really started to conquer the world and, you know, put themselves at the forefront of performance motoring for effectively for the average man.
Throughout the 90s, we had, you know, as drivers, we all had cool cars to mess about in. Oh, it was so much fun. I mean, you know, you ask anyone that was a racing driver in that era, and yeah, we were a bit naughty on the roads. If your best time from home to Brands Hatch was an hour and a half, you always tried to beat that time. And the worst thing was when you ever got 2 racing drivers going to the same place at the same time, because, you know, it's one thing driving fast on the road, it's a totally different thing when the horns come out. Is this where I get locked up afterwards for revealing all my crimes? We had a thing called production saloon car racing, which was huge. And that really was cars you took off the road, bolted a roll cage in and went racing with. And it had all the different classes in it. That was a big sort of, a very popular sort of series. And touring cars was that step above it, which was, you know, the ultimate version of the road cars. They really were quite closely related, if you like, to the road cars that people were buying in their masses, you know. What happened was, with the manufacturers being involved in the racing, they would give out 5,000–10,000 tickets, you know, to races. So we had huge fans who were coming because they owned a Cavalier or a Nissan or a BMW or whatever it was, and they were there to support the brand and the drivers who were in those cars because they related to them, because that's what they drove as well. And they were close enough to what they were driving on the road that they could feel a sort of subliminal involvement with what the guys were going through on the racetrack at the weekend. It was great.
Everybody used to say race on a Sunday, sell on a Monday. And people just could relate to it. You could go out as a family in your saloon and you'd watch a race on the Sunday, listen to Murray Walker and getting all excited on the touring cars. It was just a great time. I mean, you're never going to have the real thing, but that's pretty much close as you can get. The 155 dominated in the 94 season. I just had to have it.
Every manufacturer had a kind of sexy sporting edge to it in a way that maybe we don't really see it today anymore, which is such a shame. Everything was a little bit exciting, a little bit hot.
Back in the 90s, it was more, you know, how outrageous can we make it? What's the most outrageous body kit we can do? How can we push power from the engines? This RS moment for Audi became kind of more the consumer part of that, because the S1 Quattro, the E1s, the E2s, the IMSAs, all of that, they were all created specifically, whether it was for Le Mans as well, they were created specifically for those tracks and for those things. This became a sports car for everyday people.
It was an estate car that could outperform the McLaren F1, I think to 30 miles an hour, maybe 20. That's ridiculous. The fact you can put your dog in the back and beat an F1 red light GP, that's insane. But begs the question, why is everybody so obsessed with M cars? Buy an RS2, it's much quicker, and it feels brilliant to drive as well. Honestly, blows me away when just thinking about it now. Bloody quick car.
When you drive a car on the limit, you're like a ballet dancer. Not in physique, but you're like a ballet dancer. You are literally teetering on the edge of a Dijon and balancing the grip on the tyres front to rear. You jump in a Lotus Elise and it's alive in your hands, isn't it? Absolutely. Bloody Lotus Carlton, well, Carlton, but made Lotus-y. I mean, that was the sort of the Q car, wasn't it? Stupidly quick, quite tunable as well. But yeah, it was an absolute great getaway car. And of course, saloons as well. You know, it wasn't the four-door shopping car, it was a proper barnstorming, you know, hooligan car.
That was a real villain car, but in the best way possible, you know, because it was such a capable thing. Every single person who needed to quickly get away from somewhere was very inclined to get themselves a Lotus Carlton, be it via illegal means or purchasing one, probably not. That car was so quick, Parliament tried to ban it in period. And again, that was a real culture shift where this idea of power, luxury, performance and pace was suddenly unlocked to, let's say, a more wider mass market demographic. So much so that, you know, the lawmakers in Parliament went, oh, the common man should not be allowed to entertain 190 miles an hour on the public roads. Hold on a minute, you could buy a Ferrari and do that. Nobody was kicking up a fuss. Suddenly, this kind of working class hero came along. You could do that, and suddenly the bigwigs were kicking up a fuss. So clearly that car made an impact far bigger than just on magazines. It was a cultural impact. Great bit of history. It's worth remembering as well, in the 90s, people didn't have the access we do today to social media. It was much harder to be a couch potato. You had to have a hobby, you had to be into something. A car was a very, very good way for somebody to keep busy and stay entertained. It kind of goes to show there was a lot more people interested in tinkering and messing about with motors And I think that's probably because, in some way, that was the best thing you could do at the time.
90s cars were different. They all were individual. You could do so much with them, change the wheels, add spoilers, rear spoilers, front spoilers. It all kind of got a bit lost today, I think.
I can work on this. Mechanics years ago would take a starter motor apart and repair it.
Most of the engines of that era were cast iron, typically with an aluminium cylinder head. Due to the integral strength of that, gave tuning possibilities, you know. And with turbo cars, just turn up the boost, more power.
The engine in a car gives it its soul. Even the act of turning a key and hearing a starter motor fire an engine, it's different in every car. And sometimes I'll get back in an old race car that I used to race, and just starting up, it brings back memories, and it makes you realise how individual a car is. You can't have that with an EV. It just cannot happen. And that's what people are missing out on.
90s cars, a lot of them are very simple mechanically. You know, they can be fixed with a hammer and a stick if you're stuck stranded at the side of the road. If it wasn't for the developments of the 90s, today's cars wouldn't be as refined and as capable.
It was a very simple way of life, and I think the cars almost matched it. We didn't have to get into a car in the 90s and expect to have sat-nav. I was chuffed to put a cassette player in. Adam Ant and all these other bands that were out, that Spandau Ballet and Madness and all those cassettes that you used to put in, and sometimes you'd be lucky enough, or you'd pull it out and all the cassette would get wound up inside the headset.
I guess 90s cars just had that passive car enthusiast who liked the car and was into the car, not just because of a car enthusiast, but because the car allowed them to do so, which is kind of sad now I think about it that way.
Everything changes, and it's very easy to be really negative about today's motoring world. But, you know, we're sat here at Bicester Motion, and if you turn up for one of the scramble meetings here, you will see hordes of youngsters with cameras, with their phones, looking at cars, and they clearly love cars. For me, it's really refreshing to see, because it means that the love of cars isn't going to die out with my generation or my kids' generation. There are generations of kids coming along who genuinely love cars. Whilst the cars themselves may not be as interesting, and certainly you can't really work on them and do as much, I think the interest and the passion is still hugely there, but it might now be making videos of cars rather than actually pulling the spark plugs out, you know what I mean?
I see a lot of young guys, young girls come to car events with something immaculate from the 90s. It has its own energy and it draws in people like me and people watching this video. I'm generally quite optimistic and forward-thinking in terms of cars of the future and cars today. I love modern cars, but the 90s can still stand out for having their own energy that you just simply can't get from a new car. And even though new things can come along and be better, can be more interesting, can you know, push the envelope in terms of design and engineering, you can still look back at the 90s as a very distinctive, very characterful part of the history of the automobile.
I think certain cars deserve to live longer. You know, the Mazda 323 I had at the beginning of my car journey, does that deserve to still be here today? No, it didn't deserve to be there back then. But I think certain cars deserve to be kept around for a little bit longer. Whether that's going to be possible in the future or not, but as long as it can be, I think, yeah.
Before, and I hope it'll never happen, all the cars disappear, go and get yourself you know, a Clio. Get yourself a 205 GTI. Get yourself a Golf GTI and just experience what it was to drive a lightweight, analog, seat of the pants, real car. You'll never experience that in anything that's ever made again. And they are attainable. Those cars are attainable to anybody. And if you do it, you'll have a passion for cars and, more importantly to me, a passion for driving for the rest of your life. Please like and subscribe, as always, on Influx.
Influx is powered by Adrian Flux Insurance, so thank you to them for making this happen, and an even bigger thank you to you for supporting the channel, especially if you hit subscribe. It means we can continue to make content like this. I'll let you into a secret. We're now filming cars that made the 80s, and also I just want to say a huge thank you to anyone that featured in cars that made the 90s. We really appreciate it. Hit subscribe and I'll see you soon.
If you like this film, feel free to check out some of these others on your screen now. Go on, give them a click. Maybe that one.